First off, I guess let's go right into the data because that's why we're talking. And, for a lot of people on the outside of your field, they just may not know that, the most recent study in our state that we've seen real research into, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like child sex trafficking victims that have ties to mercy care. And so there's a lot more victims out there statewide, but like 60% plus are in the custody of DCS. I mean, is that not surprising to you? Just like when you get that kind of information, being in this field for so long, what comes to mind?
Yeah, I think it does match other studies, even through NCMEC or the National Center for Missing Exploited Kids, with their sexual exploitation and child sex trafficking. They see similar numbers of kids that are in care under Child Protective Services. So I do think that we kind of follow the national average, but it is not surprising to me that so many kids in DCS care are at risk for exploitation or potentially are victims of exploitation or trafficking.
And coming off just talking to Anaya Walker's dad, she was 16 years old and had ran away several times, but it seems like people knew that who the kind of people that she was with, but could not really stop her from getting away. And then, it's just a sad story all around how she ends up dead on a freeway in 2020. But like, there's clear warning signs that she was being taken advantage of and trafficked. What is it about that DCS custody population that makes them such vulnerable prey?
I think this is a very complicated answer, and obviously we really sometimes want to be able to simplify it, but it's just not possible because every kiddo who is in DCS is going to have different risk factors for different things. One of the things I think that's imperative when we talk about kids that have been trafficked or exploited is really that trauma bonding with that perpetrator. And that's one of the biggest things I think to break. They're really bonded to their abuser. They believe they are in love with their abuser. And so if we look at it from, like adult lens, like a DV situation, and you're adding some commercial sex to that, these kiddos maybe have not had the best backgrounds to come from. They might not have been shown or modeled healthy relationships. And so they don't recognize that this individual who they consider to be like their boyfriend or girlfriend and they love them is not a healthy relationship. Sometimes there might not be consent involved. Again, there might be force and physical and sexual violence happening. They're not recognizing that it's the awful situation that we as adults can see it to be. And it gets really, really complicated. And the further we get them away from that abuse, I think the more they're able to rationalize the behavior.
What has been your experience in recent years in doing outreach and meeting girls who may have been in a situation like Anaya's? Like, what's the solution then?
Oh, wow. The solution is we need more services for victims. And again, a lot of our adult victims started under the age of 18. So they were juveniles when that sex trafficking first started. And so we need therapeutic resources. We need more survivor mentors to help kind of guide these victims, especially when they're a part of the collaborative. We need housing, specialized homes, like therapeutic homes. I wish it was like a bit of a more simple answer, but we're dealing with complex trauma. So much so where the victims don't even recognize that they've been victimized.
Is there any way to be proactive?
I think ways to be proactive would be having conversations with kids, right? And not just about trafficking, not just about exploitation, but body safety, healthy relationships, boundaries, consent. I think a lot of times people think, oh, I gave consent, I gave consent. Well, consent can be pulled at any time. Just because you gave consent one time doesn't mean the next time that there's still consent involved. Self-esteem, self-worth. A lot of kiddos, especially who maybe come from a single family household or they've been pulled into DCS custody because of neglect or physical or sexual abuse, like at the end of the day, they just want to be a part of a family. They want to feel loved. So training staff at the group homes and the foster care homes to recognize exploitation, to recognize trafficking, maybe some boundaries with cell phones, talking about, the way adults should behave to children. I think our kids need tools on how to grow up, right? We're growing up in a society that has a lot of technology. And if a kiddo doesn't have a phone, they're almost ostracized because they don't have a smartphone, right? And so how do we teach personal boundaries and safety to those kids, and how to recognize that, an adult contacting a 16-year-old, right? Like a 30-year-old adult contacting a 60-year-old is not healthy, right? That adult doesn't have proper boundaries. That adult is a predator. That adult shouldn't be seeking a relationship with someone under the age of 18. And so I think we have a lot of work to do as a community, and it's not just on DCS. It's on all of us, parents, community members. But what can we do to strengthen and add more supports to this population?
How long has this been an issue involving predators that are looking at group home kids as easy targets?
I can only speak since the time I've been involved in this field, which has been, over 10 years now. That's always been a risk factor. And I'm assuming it's, before my time, it's even been a risk factor. These victims are very susceptible. Again, when you don't have an adult who's paying attention to who you're talking to, if you're in a group home and it's overnight and there's maybe only one staff member and there's 12 kiddos at that group home, you're not having the eyes on these kids. You're not able to have those one-on-one discussions. You're not able to provide as much safety as potentially, a kiddo in a two-parent household or a generational household might have.
I think a lot of people judge and assume that, these teens just want to run away and party and get drunk and high. And yeah, I'm sure it happens, but really is it just as simple as they want love, maybe a real meal and maybe some pair of shoes? I don't know. Look, the simple things that they would have gotten with their family, but they feel just kind of isolated at these homes and somebody showing them that.
Yes. So I think that's one of the heuristics of a trafficker, right? It's, let me provide something for you. Oh, you haven't been to a nice sit-down restaurant before. I can provide that for you. Oh, you want some Air Jordans? I can provide that for you. You want a new iPhone? You want money? You want a Louis Vuitton bag? You want me to take you to Walmart and fill your refrigerator? I can do that for you. Absolutely.
How long can the grooming last until they're fully being, put out on the street? Depends
on how vulnerable that victim is, and it depends on how well and susceptible they are to that grooming. It could be really easy for a trafficker or an exploiter who knows what they're doing. They could groom somebody pretty quickly. I mean, it really depends on the kiddo. It could be quick. It could take several months.
So in the outreach that you've done, say for instance, we're at the track and you're talking to clearly 18 and over women, and I'm sure it's a mixed bag, but it can be very likely that at some point they were in DCS custody in some sort of foster care home or group home facility in their time as a child.
Absolutely. So when we are doing outreach and we're working with our population of trafficked individuals, those are questions that we ask. What was the first age you were when you first ran away from home? Were you ever in foster care or DCS care? And what age did you go into care? So we ask questions like that. And we do see that background a lot. And that's why it's an indicator for trafficking, is because it is a common theme that we see over and over and over again, and it does show up in the research.
So, really training would help. More training for group home staff, even DCS caseworkers. From your experience, you just feel like is that not enough of a priority right now here in Arizona?
I know DCS has done training in the past, and it's a continual thing that they do for new workers that come on. But I think you can never have enough training. You can never have enough conversations. I think it's hard because we have a lot of caseworkers and they've got big caseloads, but we've got to have conversations with the kids. We as parents have to have conversations with our kids. So it should be something that we're all doing, hey, you're at a greater risk because you're in this group home. So let's talk about boundaries. Let's talk about internet safety. Let's talk about signs of grooming and things, because we don't want something to happen to you. Because I think what we want is all of these kids to grow up safe, healthy, and happy, and be productive adults and not be victimized at the end of the day.
So with all those recommendations, this could be a loaded question, but going into this situation where now it seems like lawmakers, tribal leaders, state leaders are saying, look, enough is enough. We just had a string of really tragic deaths and they could have been prevented for sure. what is the short-term solution? Like right now, what does DCS, in your humble opinion, need to do in 2025?
This is a very loaded question.
In regards to runaways and trafficking, obviously, like when it comes to like a Baptiste thing that maybe not in your wheelhouse, she's 10 years old, but these girls like Zariah that kept running away, just like, I don't know, is there a short list where, is it just communication? Because like they're constantly like in and out, and the red flags are seen, the people around them, it's seen, but it's always like, oh, well, it was just too late.
Training, communication regarding these kids. If there's even, I think, an inkling or they suspect that they're at risk for being exploited or trafficked, they're not even there yet, but they're like, we're seeing some of the signs, intervention. Start doing intervention. They don't have to be trafficked to have services. Start the intervention before it's too late and they're trauma bonded to somebody. I think intervention is always good. And just as we have conversations, like, you know, I have 3 kids, we have to have the case managers, or they have to be in service where we're having conversations about a variety of different topics. Again, self-esteem, self-worth, right? Consent, boundaries, internet safety, trafficking, exploitation, sextortion, the list goes on. These are conversations my parents didn't have to have with me as kids, but I didn't grow up in this technology-fueled world, and that's where a lot of our victims are meeting their abusers. And so we have to keep having these conversations and prepare our kids that they may be reached out to somebody. And it's easier to do when you come from a 2-parent household or even a 1-parent household. But when you are living in a group home, you know, you're probably not going to get some of those safety checks and safety boundaries. And so that should be a priority.